From sunny, steamy, hot, sweaty Nashville, Tennessee. Brand Tricky. I'm going to be going over the roster update today, as well as we're going to touch on some of the new bonuses that you could get with the All-Star Summer um, event that they have in the time missions. That you can pick your winners for the Home Run Derby. Right here, you can choose between Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, Jesus Aguilar, Javier Baez, Max Muncy, Alex Bregman, Freddie Freeman, and Rhys Hoskins. You can pick one of those players, and they have assigned bonuses to them as well. And you can also choose what section in the outfield is going to see the most home runs. Is it going to be left field? Is it going to be center field? Is it going to be right field? With each one of these selections, there's tied bonuses if you select them correctly. Last year, SDS did this for the playoffs, and it was actually quite cool, especially if you were lucky enough to guess which teams would win in which playoff rounds, or if you were wise enough in your selection and who would win the World Series overall. You got a nice little bonus afterwards. So we'll touch on that briefly on what you can win, and then we'll go into the roster update review. There's also a choice in here that you can make to pick between either the National League or the American League. And once again, there's bonuses tied into that. So let me get my stuff set up here, and we'll get going here pretty quickly. Okay. So with the selection of which section in the outfield that you think will see the most home runs, if you are correct, you'll win 3,000 stubs and one All-Star player pack. I chose right field for this. Nationals Park it's kind of weird. They're gonna be playing it in the evening, so I've seen a lot more home runs hit to right field in that park than I have to left in the center field. And there's Harper, Schwarber, Freeman are all lefties, and I think Harper's going to be the one that takes the medal in the home run derby. So I went ahead and picked Harper. Now, with your selection of home run derby players, you can pick out of any of those guys, but there's some caveats to this. So if you pick Bryce Harper and you win, you will only receive 2,000 stubs and one All-Star player pack. The same rewards go for Kyle Schwarber and Jesus Aguilar. But if you pick the other players, the stub reward is higher. If you select Javier Baez, Max Muncy, Alex Bregman, Freddie Freeman, and Rhys Hoskins, if they win the home run derby and you're correct with your selection, you'll receive 4,000 stubs and one All-Star player pack. And they kind of noted here on the ShowNation.com that you need to fully redeem the mission, and if you're correct, the future mission on the Wednesday, July 18th, will ask you to collect a souvenir to earn the stubs and the All-Star player pack. Now, in terms of the All-Star game, your selection is between the American League and the National League. If you are correct in your selection, you will win 1,000 stubs and one All-Star player pack for a correct selection. If the game ends in a tie, we will reward everybody for playing along, which I hope to God that it does not end in a tie. All right, so if you have any questions about that, don't hesitate to ask. Hey, how's it going, Lauren? So let's go into the roster update. I got my notes here, and we'll go over who they updated and who I had predicted in my previous video on roster updates that I released July 2nd, well in advance of this particular roster update. So you see that Chris Sale got a nice little bump. He's now a 90 overall. He got a well-deserved bump in his per nines. And then Francisco Lindor and himself, he got a pretty good, well-deserved bump as well. I was expecting those power numbers to go up. Aroldis Chapman got put on the DL, so that's why he's on the roster update. So when you play the computer, he's probably not going to come out of the pen. JD Martinez got another bump. Oh my God, I already hate facing this card enough as is. Now seeing him with over 100 power versus righties is just even more frightening. I'm not looking forward to seeing that card more and more often. I was really upset that they gave him fielding that makes him reasonable in the outfield. They bumped his fielding up to make him a diamond, but he's well deserving of a diamond at this point. I mean, his hitting has been absolutely off the chain for the last 2 years when he was with Detroit, and then his brief stint in Arizona, where he went absolutely bananas and hit tons of home runs. I think he hit more home runs in that final month of September 2017 than the Detroit Tigers as an entire team hit. And the Tigers had traded him for basically peanuts. They got nothing in return. But we'll see. We'll see how that pans out. Those prospects that you get in return, it usually takes a few years for them to even show any signs of promise. Alex Bregman is one of the guys that we mentioned. He wasn't the guy that we highlighted, but we mentioned him. We highlighted Anthony Rendon as going as a potential diamond upgrade, but we talked about Alex Bregman as being a candidate to get an upgrade within his gold rating. Now he's on the cusp, same as Anthony Rendon at 84. Well-deserved bump. He had a great month of June, and I expected that. This is an upgrade that I think a lot of people are going to be upset about. Is Andrelton Simmons. I kind of saw this happening. He had a really poor month of June. And then towards the end, most of the month of June he was injured, so the beginning part of it, and then when he came back he wasn't hitting the same as what he was before. And he's got a 3-year average tied to him, so that's something hard to get over. But these numbers kind of screwed up big time for some of the people who were banking on him going diamond. He really didn't need much to get over the hump, and that -7 on the power and the -5 on the speed, it looks like it absolutely destroyed people's investments. Gosh, that's got to be so disappointing for so many people. I know that Sparky Gaming is one of the guys who invested deeply into Andrelton Simmons, and he's got to be beside himself right now, looking to make 2 million stubs off of one particular investment, and they didn't give it to him. I'm kind of shocked by that, but like I said, those 3-year averages, they come back to bite you. Anthony Rizzo finally got downgraded to a gold. His beginning couple months were absolutely horrendous. And I think finally, after a while, SDS is like, okay, it's time to take him, back to a gold, where he was, I believe at the end of last year, he was a gold card that you could get. He still has pretty nice quirks, but he's no longer, I didn't see Sparky's tweet, I'll have to check that out. Yeah, his quirks are still pretty nice. He's got I think he still has the unfazed quirk, and he's got decent numbers still, but he's no longer a diamond, so he's not going to cost as much to get, and he'll be part of the World Series rewards for the gold rewards. And if you go 9-0 in any of the event runs and the BR, you'll end up you have a chance to getting him instead of him being your diamond reward. Here's another player that we predicted in our roster update. He was actually a guy that we highlighted in our roster update prediction video. Edwin Diaz had an absolutely ridiculous month of June, which is the reason why I highlighted him. He in the 30 days prior to July 2nd, he had a 1.26 ERA with a 0.60 fielding independent of pitching, 13.19 K per 9, and a 0.63 walks per 9, and 13 saves. He went absolutely nuts in the month of June, and when I did my video on the 2nd, I thought that he was well deserving of an upgrade. I didn't know how much it was going to be. I thought there would be a very large increase in the walks per 9, and they gave him a +6, which is great. And his home runs per 9 kind of reflects what he's been doing this year as well. They could bump up his clutch as well, and they could bump up his hits per 9, and I'd be even more impressed. But as it sits right now, he's going to be an 83, and he'll be on Diamond Watch for the rest of the season if he continues to play like he has. He's currently on pace to beat Eric Gagne's save record, which is impressive because that was quite remarkable when Eric Gagne had that season. So we'll move on over to the next page here. I think we're going to be getting into some more in-grade upgrades for the gold cards. Aaron Nola was a well-deserving player to go diamond. He's had a great season so far. It looks like that -2 on the walks per nine kind of held him back here, but the hits per nine and the Ks per nine and the home runs per nine, those are all pretty accurate, and I think he's going to be one of those guys that we'll have to watch for the remainder of the season as a potential diamond. There are quite a few diamonds already in the game, so it'll take some justification to put somebody up there and potentially even move a guy down to make room for that. Just the rarity of the cards in the game. If everybody has this many golds and they bump him up to a diamond, then it kind of messes up with the market and so on and so forth. But he's a well-deserving player, no doubt about it. But he's still a gold. And Trevor Bauer is a guy that we highlighted in our previous prediction video on the July 2nd. Trevor Bauer is just having a career year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yeah, there's a lot of lag on the roster update because everybody's looking at it right now. Trevor Bauer is playing like a diamond card. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's playing better than just about everybody in the American leagues outside of Luis Severino. He's right up there in the Cy Young candidate race right now. And he's going to be somebody that you have to pay attention to whether or not he's going to go diamond for the rest of the year. I think this is an accurate portrayal of what his per nines have been, and I think they could go up even higher. Specifically with the Ks per nine could go up even further. The walks per nine is about accurate, and the home runs per nine could actually go up quite a bit more. He's stymied people to a ridiculous tone for 2018, 0.40 home runs per nine. I mean, that's ridiculous for somebody that plays in the American League and has to face 9 hitters. And his average against is .207, so even his hits per nine could go up even further. Lauren, when it came out at first, it took forever to go from page to page. Yeah, it's still that way. It's still very slow. Everybody's favorite to go diamond a couple updates ago, George Springer, he actually got a -1. They decreased his contact and power versus righties. He's had kind of a rough month, and his discipline went down as well. He's not taking as many walks, and he's not striking out as much. So that's reflected in his vision increase, but that's unfortunate. Chad Green got an increase in his velocity, so that'll be interesting to face him in any kind of online setting with the increase in velocity. I always felt like his cutter was a little bit slow and his fastball wasn't as fast as it should have been. He throws in the high 90s and he's a very effective reliever. 82 is perfect for him. This is somebody left a comment for me on the roster update prediction, and they was like, "Oh, what about Ozzie Albies?" I overlooked him simply because he's a rookie and they don't have enough. I was not expecting them to make the bump on him. I didn't think they had enough statistical data and enough history to make a decision to bump him up to a gold. But they bumped him up 3. He went from a 79 to an 82, and they bumped up his contact versus righties, his power versus righties, and he's starting to hit righties now. When the year started, he had a hot month of April where he just crushed lefties, and it's still reflected in his attributes right now. His discipline went down, but his vision went up. He's not striking out very much, but he's not walking very much either. But he's now a gold, so it kind of justifies. Everybody had been kind of purchasing and selling him for about 1,000 stubs, so it makes total and complete sense. Benny Biceps. Got a little bump there with power versus lefties, and his contact versus righties went up again. That's not somebody that we mentioned in our previous video. Eugenio Suarez is somebody that we mentioned. He was part of our third base. We highlighted Anthony Rendon, but we mentioned Alex Bregman, and we also mentioned Eugenio Suarez as potential in-grade upgrades. And he went up to an 82 from an 81, and across the board, all of his hitting attributes took a bump, which is nice. It was well deserved. He's been, I think, leading the league in RBIs. That's not really a stat that you can use to determine whether or not someone's attributes are going to go up, but it's something you can definitely pay attention to because he's hitting the ball, he's being clutch, and he's getting a lot of base hits, and his power numbers are way up. Christian Yelich took a bump. This is because they moved him from center field to left field. That's the only reason why his upgrade is the way it is. None of his attributes went down. He just takes a bump because he moved to left field. And there's that lag. It takes forever for the roster update pages to flip. I think it's because everybody's on here looking at him. Aaron Hicks is a player that we highlighted in the outfield to get an upgrade to go from silver to gold. And he got +3. He had an absolutely monstrous month of June, which is why I highlighted him along with Jock Peterson and Rhys Hoskins. Rhys Hoskins isn't going to be in our roster update here, but I still think that he's a smart investment opportunity to go gold at some point, either the next roster update or within the next month after the All-Star break. But Jock Peterson is somebody who we will see here in the roster update. But Aaron Hicks, he had an absolutely ridiculous month. And the day after I made my roster update predictions on July 2nd, so the day after, he turned around and hit 3 home runs in a game. And I was like, oh, wow. He just kind of proved my point there. He's going to make gold this roster update prediction. His card still isn't, great. His defense is, it's diamond level or high gold level. His hitting finally starting to match up with that. His vision went down a little bit, but his discipline went up because he's been walking a great deal more, and then he's exhibited some great power numbers. Daniel Robertson's velocity went up, which is respectable. Javier Baez is a player that we did mention. We didn't highlight him. We highlighted Ketel Marte for second base. I thought Ketel Marte was deserving of at least an upgrade, but his stats for 2018 for the entire year aren't exactly perfect to warrant an upgrade, but his month of June was very good. Javier Baez was another player that I thought would go up within his grade, but they didn't really give him an overall attribute upgrade. They gave him some stats, basically contact versus right, and then power versus left went up, and his discipline went down by 7, which is what kind of held him back from going up in the gold rateds. And his contact versus left also went down. David Price received a decrease. His stamina went down, as well as his walks per 9, his home runs per 9. Patrick Corbin is somebody that I overlooked. I didn't think that they were going to give him another upgrade this year, but he's got a 3-year history that has kind of held him back, and this year he's having a career year. He's doing great. He's doing absolutely fantastic, and he hasn't really let off the gas. He got a bump up to a gold from a silver, and I think that's accurate for what his numbers have been, statistically portraying this year. He deserves a gold. Nick Markakis is another guy. He's got a long history, well more than 3 years of a career average there, and his last 3 years haven't been exactly great. He's been steady. He's been an above average player for quite a long time. But this year with the Braves, he came out of the gate hot, and he hasn't really slowed down. He's still hitting over 300. And this isn't a player that we highlighted, but he's well deserving of his silver to gold upgrade. Some of the people who had invested in him are going to make quite a few stubs. Blake Snell got an increase in velocity. He's somebody I would watch out for. He kind of got beat up last night in his pitching matchup, but he's doing great this year. He changed some of his pitching mechanics, and he's been absolutely lights out this year. And his walks have gone way down, and that was something that always held him back, because by the time he'd get to the 5th inning, he'd already be around 80 to 90 pitches, and he'd already be gassed and ready to turn in. He's pitching much deeper into games, and he's getting many more strikeouts, and he's allowing fewer hits. So I'd watch out for him. I don't know if it's going to be enough to get him all the way up to a diamond, but he's definitely somebody to pay attention to. And Wilson Ramos is a guy that we have talked about for the past few weeks, but on this previous roster update prediction, we didn't talk about him. we we expected his numbers to go up a couple weeks ago, but they finally went up. He's seen a bump in his contact versus left. He's always been able to hit left-handed pitchers, but we finally saw a little bit of power number increase on his power versus righties. His vision's gone down a little bit, and his discipline has gone up because his walk numbers are up for the year. So he's finally gone from a silver to a gold. This is somebody that we had predicted I think about a month ago, we predicted him to go gold. So if you were able to invest back then, you should be raking in some of the stubs today. Yeah, the market is very inflated. Anybody that invested will make a ton of stubs. Absolutely. That's a perfect point, Lauren. All right, so we're waiting on the page to turn. Everybody's kind of on this roster update right now, so it's taking a bit. Scooter Gennett got another upgrade. He's another player that I didn't think that they were going to upgrade again this year, but they did, and they bumped him up from a silver to a gold, and he deserved it. They bumped up his hitting statistics, and they bumped up his arm as well. He took, he's having a great year, and he deserves to go up to a gold. So I don't despise SDS for that. I just wish I had invested in him before he started having a completely, off the chain month. He's been absolutely ridiculous. So he deserves to go up to a gold. And if you invested in him, good on you. And then Blake Treinen, I didn't think that they were going to upgrade him so quickly. A quick turnaround on him. They upgraded him. They've kind of upgraded him several times. I believe he went from a bronze to a silver, and now he went up to a 78 last roster update, and now he's 78 to an 80. He absolutely deserved it. His numbers have been sick. He's not somebody that we highlighted or talked about at all in our previous roster update, but he absolutely deserved to go to a gold. His clutch he's closing out games at an astonishing number. And in my fantasy baseball league, he was somebody that I tried to draft from day one because I figured that the A's were going to be a lot better than what their numbers were portraying. Another guy that kind of surprised me, I didn't mention him, and he was off my radar, was Will Myers. Will Myers got a +2. Treinen did get a player of the month. It's a very nice diamond. It's on the ticket counter. Will Myers went from a silver to a gold. His hitting numbers went up. The only thing that went down on him was his discipline, but it was still enough to bump him up into the gold tier, which is I didn't see his numbers being that great, but they bumped him up. Chris Archer got a -2. He's a good candidate to be traded before the trade deadline at the end of the month. Here's a player that I'm shocked about. I thought he was going to go gold. We mentioned him about a month ago in our roster update prior to July 2nd, and we talked about him going up because his numbers versus righties had been better this year, and they did him a little dirty. That -5 on the contact versus righties, it might be a little bit warranted. I don't think he's hitting about 250 or so against righties, but it was just enough to keep him from going gold. So he went from a 78 to a 79. Elvis Andrus dropped from a gold to a silver. I figure he's probably a candidate to get back up to a gold. He's been hurt, so it's not so bad. Whit Merrifield is a guy that I've been talking about for quite some time. He's not somebody that we mentioned in our most recent roster update, but he got some in-grade upgrades. So if he ends up moving back to second base, he could go gold. And I think that the next roster move thing that they do, which might be next week, he'll end up going from center field back to gold, to second base, which will make him a gold. So pay attention to him. He wouldn't be a bad investment opportunity if you were looking to kind of take advantage of that. It's not going to be as one of those what we have today with the roster update. It's actually going to be every kind of move transaction update that they do. So he's a good one to pay attention to. He plays second base most of the time. He's moved a little bit to the outfield, but the Royals are playing Alcides Escobar in center field, and then they're playing Raul Mondesi at shortstop, and then they're letting Witt play at second base. He could also be another candidate to be traded before the end of the month, so he might end up on somebody else's team. So he's not a bad investment opportunity right now, and he will, I think, if they move him back to second base, he'll go gold, and that'll be a nice opportunity for people to hop up on. He moves from center field to second base and gets that gold rating. Tommy Pham took a -3. This kind of hurt. I thought he was potentially going to go up to a diamond, but he's really struggled in the last couple months. They gave him a -15 and a -10. -15 on the contact versus right, and a -10 on the power versus lefties. They also hit his discipline with a -7, so ouch. He goes from a gold to a silver. Sorry, I'm coughing. I'm talking way too much. Alright, we're waiting on the next page to flip here. Alright, another player that we mentioned. We highlighted Jose Martinez at first base to go from, I think he's currently at a silver. We thought he would go up to a gold rating, but we also mentioned Max Muncy, Jesus Aguilar, and Matt Carpenter to get upgrades within silver. Jesus Aguilar got himself a nice little bump, his power numbers, and they actually gave him some defensive upgrades, which is crazy because I've seen him play in real life. He is not nimble on the field. He reminds me of a DH. He's a big guy. He's about 240 pounds, but the power's there, the hitting's there, and he deserves the +3. I don't think he's gonna go gold, so don't hold me to that. I heard that his Player of the Month card is ridiculous. Brett Gardner got an increase in his vision and his discipline. I thought that that's warranted. He only went up +1. Ken Giles went from a gold to a silver, and that's well deserved. He got demoted to AAA, so he deserves to get that demotion from gold to silver. Miles Malokas got a +3. He's now 75 to a 78. He's having himself a great year. I think he's one of those guys. I think he came over from Japan, if I'm remembering correctly, and he's proven himself in the major leagues. He's played very well in his first full year in the major leagues, and he's doing great things for the Cardinals. So he deserves his +3. Hector Rondon, I believe he is the new closer for the Houston Astros. His upgrade is well deserved from a 76 to a 78. The Astros are, probably the favorites to get back to the World Series, but it's really hard to repeat. David Peralta is a guy that we talked about in our roster update prediction when we made the video on July 2nd. We highlighted Jock Peterson, Aaron Hicks, and Rhys Hoskins, but we talked about David Peralta, Randall Grichuk, and Jesse Winker. We will see Jesse Winker. I can't remember if we see Randall Grichuk or not, but David Peralta, I thought he was having himself a great month of June, and he deserved an upgrade. And they did. They reflected that. They gave him, he's now got 90 contact versus right, and his power versus righties has gone up as well, and that was well deserved. Adubel Herrera was a guy that everyone thought was going to go gold about a month ago, and the roster update came out, and it completely stymied, everybody's hopes and dreams. And now he's gone down one. This is kind of what happens with, this is why SDS doesn't rush to make those moves, and why people need to tame their expectations on these roster updates. You should be planning ahead when you're doing a roster update prediction or an investment. You shouldn't be expecting it to turn around and give you immediate accolades and what you demand out of it. Should be expecting, if this guy continues to play this way for another month, then he should probably go up. So if I invest now and say he's a silver and I'm putting in 150 stubs in, if I get 10 of his cards and he goes up a month later, I'll have made roughly 9,000 stub profit off of that, because every one of his cards is going to be worth more than 1,000, and potentially more than that, and you can make your money back from what you invested in him. So That's what your goal should be. You shouldn't be expecting SDS to meet every one of your demands. So this is one of the perfect examples. Everyone thought he was going to go gold, and now he's actually gone down. So he's even further away from hitting that gold. Dylan Bundy was somebody that I thought had a shot at going gold. We didn't mention him in our video because his numbers are they're false advertising. And he got moved to the DL. He sprained his ankle, and then when he came back from the DL, these last two starts he's absolutely been rocked. So unfortunate for him. He was having himself a hell of a month, and things just didn't turn out well for him. We're turning the page and going to page 6 of the update. We're not going to do every page. I'm just going to cover, after a while here, I'm going to cover some of the guys that we talked about in our roster update. Tyler Skaggs is a player that we highlighted to get a roster update. We didn't think it was going to be enough to go to a gold, but it was definitely enough to go with it within silver, and his numbers, shown that. And he got Player of the Month card for June, and his Live Series card has reflected his numbers that he's put up. Kelvin Herrera is a player that I would keep an eye on. He hasn't been striking people out this year, but if he starts to bump that K per 9 up, we could definitely see him tease that gold area, because he's having a phenomenal year, but it's just not enough to get up there. Matt Kemp, his numbers went up, well deserved. Not enough to get up to a gold, but I didn't think he was going to get up to a gold, but he's played his butt off, and he deserved to get an increase there. Jed Lowry, his numbers went up, but he hasn't moved any. He's still at a 77. His power against lefties and his vision both went down, which kind of negated him from moving from a 77 to a 78 or even a 79. Nathan Eovaldi has absolutely been crazy. Look at that, a plus 69 on his break. They must have screwed that up. That can't be how low it was, because he was at a 73. But yeah, he deserves it. He's been pitching great the past couple weeks. So I didn't have him listed on our roster update predictions, but he deserves his +4. So he went from a bronze to a silver. Michael Conforto, they moved him from center field to left field, and that's what's reflected here. That's why his numbers went up from a 76 to a 77. I'd keep an eye out on him. He's somebody that I think is probably a good investment opportunity right now, and he could potentially go gold if he turns it back on. He's still, he had a shoulder injury that he rushed back from. They rushed him back way too quickly, and it reflected in his first 3 months, and he played so poorly. Brad Brock got a +12 in his velocity, so he went from a 75 to a 76. Matt Barnes went from a bronze to a silver. He's not somebody that we had on our list, but he's been having a great season, so he kind of deserves it. I have a funny story about him, but we'll tell it at a different time. It's related to what he was doing out in the bullpen when I was at a Boston Red Sox game, and what one of the overzealous fans did to get his attention. Bud Norris is the closers for the Cardinals. He got a well-deserved upgrade as well. His clutch went up as a reflection of all the saves that he's gotten so far this year, and his numbers per 9. So he went from a bronze to a silver. He's somebody that we left off our list as well. There's Randall Grichuk. We did mention him, and Billy Hamilton. Billy Hamilton's bunting numbers went down, so that's why he's included here. Randall Grichuk, we mentioned him because he had a pretty strong month of June, and that's reflected here. His contact numbers are still pretty poor, but his vision, his discipline, and his power numbers all went up in the month of June. Sir Anthony Dominguez went up from a bronze to a silver. I'm surprised that Sanchez didn't get a downgrade. Which Sanchez? But Sir Anthony Dominguez is the closing pitcher for the Phillies right now, and he's got some straight gas. It'll be fun to watch how well he does. He's very young right now, and he could be a very good closer in the future for the Phillies. So we'll just pay attention to him, but he's in a silver now. He went up from a bronze. I'm sorry I keep coughing. I'm talking way too much. Tyler Anderson went from a bronze to a silver. That's somebody that we left off our list. Eduardo Rodriguez, I think that kind of had his numbers screwed up, so that's why you see the plus 57 and the plus 52 there. Um, but he didn't go up anything. He's still, 76. He may have been a reliever. That's why he's on the list. Cameron Maben went up from a 73 to a 75. They moved his position. None of his other attributes changed. That's why. Oh, Gary Sanchez. Yeah. He might go down to a silver. I think he deserves a downgrade. Absolutely, Lauren. They tried to nuke Joey Gallo, and we'll see that here. Um, Jose Peraza is a player that we mentioned. We highlighted Addison Russell to go from a bronze to a silver. Um, but it was Jose Peraza that we mentioned along with Brandon Crawford to see upgrades in their positions. Jose Peraza went from the bronze to the silver, and he's had a season to reflect that. As you can see, the attribute numbers have gone up. His discipline has gone up to reflect that he's getting more walks now, and his contact as well against righties. All right, and we're turning the page. We just got to wait here for a second for it to stop being so laggy and slow. I'm kind of worried if it's lagging this bad, what's the gameplay going to be like? Wilmer Flores got downgraded. This is a position change. That's why he went from a 77 to a 75. None of his attributes changed. Max Muncy is a player that we mentioned along with Jesus Aguilar and Matt Carpenter. And we highlighted Jose Martinez. But Max Muncy went up +3. He went from a bronze to a silver. He was a 72. Now he's a 75. If he continues to just absolutely crush the ball, he will continue to get upgrades. Joakim Soria is a player that we didn't highlight as a reliever, but we did mention him. We mentioned him along with AJ Minter, Ryan Tepera of the Toronto Blue Jays, Tony Watson of the San Francisco Giants, and Chaz Rowe of the Tampa Bay Rays. Joakim Soria is the one player that I think is on this roster update who got a bump. He went from a 71 all the way up to a 75. He had a great month of June, and he's now the closing pitcher for the Chicago White Sox. So his numbers can continue to go up. He's got a 3-year average, so it'll be interesting to see how much further they're going to raise him. This might be his last little upgrade for the remainder of the year. Jock Peterson is a player that I thought was definitely going to get an upgrade. He had a slugging percentage of .889 for the month of June, so I was like, yeah, he definitely deserves it. And they did. They gave him an upgrade from a bronze to a silver. He was a 72. Now he's a 75. I thought he was going to get a Player of the Month card as well. I mean, he absolutely destroyed the ball in June. He hit .317 with a .386 on-base percentage, and then he's slugging of .889, 10 home runs. He walked 8 times and only struck out 9. So, I mean, those numbers for him in his career, that's obscene. But he was the number one player that we highlighted in the outfield to go from bronze to a silver. We also highlighted Aaron Hicks and Rhys Hoskins. Rhys Hoskins did not get a roster update here, but he's still somebody that I think we'll see. Starlin Castro, I think this is all right. So some attribute changes here. Luke Weaver got downgraded from a silver to a bronze. Mark Reynolds had himself a ridiculous game where I think he had over 10 RBIs, and he had a really good month, and he's back playing more than what he was. So he went from a 70 to a 74. Sonny Gray got downgraded from a silver to a bronze, which his season so far is absolutely true to what they have been doing to him. Oh, good. The game isn't lagging, just the page. Yeah, from page to page, it's taking forever. So it's like I hit the button, we gotta wait. Byron Buxton got downgraded. He got sent down from the majors to the AAA, so that's why his numbers went down. He's also having a terrible year. I think he's hitting under 200, so that reflects in that. Luis Castillo went from a silver to a bronze, which is kind of shocking because I thought he was playing well there for a second, and then kind of fell apart again, which is unfortunate because he's got a lot of talent. He could be... he is probably the best pitcher on the Reds staff right at this point, and he needs to progress for the Reds to get out of the continual cellar dwellments that they like to reside in for year to year. Max Kepler went up, and this is a position change. They moved him to right field. Jordan Zimmerman got a +2. He's finally not being a garbage can, which is great for Tigers fans because they invested way too much money in this man for him to come in and just give up 5 runs per game. So it's nice that he's finally having a good month to talk about. Brandon Nimmo, this is a position change. They moved him to center field. That's why he went down 1. Herman Marquez got a bump from 72 to 73. He's probably one of the brighter spots in Colorado, if you can consider Colorado pitching to be a bright spot. He's somebody to watch out for. Maybe not this year, but next year for sure. He could be somebody, if he turns it on, he could go from he could go into a silver to even a gold. The Reds won't move out of last place for a while. The division is so good. I agree. J.D. Riddell got a bump from a 65 to a 72, and then CC got numbers bump because he moved from I don't know why they bumped him. Maybe he was a reliever. We'll go through these last couple pretty quickly. Jordan Hicks got better numbers. Good Lord, that man is on fire. Colin McHugh got a bump. Josh Tomlin got a bump. And then here's everybody's immortal. He finally went from a silver down to a bronze, but his power numbers are still overpowered. He's still going to be one of the best cards in the game. This isn't going to deter anybody from using him. And I don't know if his price is going to still be around 1,000, but it will probably go down. But he's still one of the best cards in the game. They can't do enough to nerf his card. Even with the tiny PCI and the power in this game is just so useful. Like, you can have those same numbers but flip them around and then have the 90s for contact and the 30s for power, and that card would be useless. But if you have the 30s for contact and the 90s for power, for some reason in 2018, you just mashed the ball. So even though it's a -3 and he went from a silver to a bronze, that card's still one of the best in the game. Jose Bautista got a +1. I think this is a position change. They moved him from third base to right field. Bronze Gallon. Bronze Gallo. Andrew Tolles, position change from center field to right field. And then Jesse Winker is a guy that we mentioned in our prediction video. He didn't win. We didn't highlight him. We highlighted Jock Pearson, Aaron Hicks, and Rhys Hoskins, but we mentioned David Peralta, Randall Grichuk, and Jesse Winker. Watch out for Jesse Winker. He's gonna be a good one. He's gonna be in this game for a long time, and his scouting reports on his hitting is a 70 out of 80. An 80. If somebody gets an 80 grade in their hit tool, that means that they're gonna bat around 330. Consistently, that's what their batting average is going to be, around 330, 320. Now, if you get a 70 or 65, you're going to be above 300 on a consistent basis. You might be around 310, 300. In some years, you might hit well over that. His power numbers are what's always kind of been freaky about him, but ever since he came up to the majors, he's gotten power, which is crazy because most people struggle when they come to the majors. But when you have good plate discipline and you have good eye, kind of like Joey Votto, you know what pitch you want to hit and where it's going to be at. So he's used those tools to become a very good player, and I think that he's going to continue to go up as we see different versions of this game. But for now, I think he's got a good chance to end the year on silver. He went up from a 67 to a 72, and I think those numbers are going to continue to go up. If he can ever learn how to hit the same way that he does against righties, against lefties, his contact numbers are going to go up, and he's going to see that jump from bronze to a silver. I've invested in him as such. And I'm not sure if there's any more that we're going to talk about. Some of the other players are common cards that got bumped up to bronzes, so that could mess you up if you're still playing the event. I made an event lineup right before I started doing this video, that has some of these cards in there. So I'm kind of excited for that. Another player to watch for is Zach Wheeler. I don't know if he's going to do enough to get to a silver this year, but in next year's game, he's a player to watch out for. John Smoltz compared Zach Wheeler to himself when they were talking about players that are currently in the majors that remind them most of themselves, and it was very realistic. He slowed down his mechanics and his rotation and everything that he does on the mound, and even his pitch types. And he's like, this player reminds me of me. I was like, wow, if that comes to fruition, Zach Wheeler could be, borderline Hall of Famer. And he's been hurt most of his career, and he's finally started to turn it around here in the last couple months. I made the move with my fantasy baseball league to pick him up and make sure that he's starting for me. But a lot of these other guys that you'll see here from page 11 to 17 are guys that you could be using in your event lineups. If you had your event lineup already set, you might still have these guys in there. Like, for instance, Freddie Peralta. Now he's a bronze, so instead of a common pitcher in the Moonshot event, you have yourself a nice little bronze card. Another guy, Antonio Santella, he got a bump. Matt Moore was another guy that was on a lot of people's rosters. Reynes Elias got a bump as well. So these three guys right here, you'll probably see them in the events, and some of them you'll have them coming out of the bullpen. Because Matt Moore, Santella, and Reynes Elias, they were all relievers. And now they got those bumps, and so their attributes didn't really change that much. AJ Minter was a guy that I thought was going to get a bump. For some reason, they didn't really give him anything. We mentioned him in our roster update predictions, but unfortunately, there's no attribute changes. I thought his clutch would change, and I thought his walks per nine would change, but nothing. All right, so I think that's going to do it for the roster update predictions. My throat is killing me, so I'm not going to do a gameplay, so I apologize for that. So I'll do another roster update prediction video when I get back from Florida next weekend. And hopefully we'll have some idea. Well, it's going to be an all-star game, so basically we're going to go off of all the statistics that people have accumulated in the month of July. And we'll see if there's anything to make a video off of it, but I'll touch base with you guys then. But until then, hopefully you guys are living large with the community market going absolutely bananas right now. Oh, something sold. I finally sold Mike Scott. So yeah, we'll kind of review how everybody did with the stub sale, and see how everyone is doing after that. So, but until then, good luck to you out there, and hopefully everything is you're enjoying with the game.